What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Beyond the 90, where we have got another video for you. Ruud is on his way, as you can see by the title, even though it's down there. Um, there's been a lot of people doing tactical analysis, some really good, some not so good, and they're basically saying the same thing and recommending the same resources. I want to do something a little bit different. I'm going to look at the players in the squad. I'm going to mention some of the formations, some basic things, and I want to touch on players that I think you really improve with some top tips for that. So before I get into that, make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you in the next section. Now, the only logical place to look at would be PS. No, we're going to look at actually Man United first. The PSV has been covered by pretty much everybody, and that's a good marker of where he's been at. I know before I've said, oh, well, is it Man United? Chance I want to go for Graham Potter and David Moyes. They've both been ruled out. So again, it looks like it'll be Ruud van Nistelrooy. But coming into this, what were they getting wrong? And a couple of things. They were leaving Casemiro exposed. Defensively, they looked all over the place. Attacking wise, they weren't good. It was a mixture of things. Ten Hag wasn't getting the most out of the team. And Ten Hag had a lot of money to spend. He spent, I think, the most. He spent more than Ollie, more than Mourinho. He spent lots of money. And the team regressed. And that's being kind. Just like Steve Cooper has at Leicester City. So some of the things that we were doing, let's get into the specifics of it. Obviously, he fell out with a couple of players. I think it was like Sancho, etc. Rashford had a bit of a patch, and then he went down again. And one thing I want to show you from this average formation, this is against the last game in charge against him. They set up with a 4-2-3-1, but they put Christian Eriksen alongside him as a double pivot. Now, in reality, it was more of a 4-1-4-1. Anybody that knows Christian Eriksen, I think it was linked to, we were mentioning him a few times when it comes to Leicester, pushed up. So it was more of a 4-1-4-1. So the idea is you've got your 5 in attack and you got your 5 in defense. The problem was Casemiro was left isolated. I think the average formation kind of will sum this up a little bit. So if you look at this, again, it's not the ideal. You see that number 14 in Christensen was all the way up here. Fernandes was playing more of that. So you see the 4 at the back, and then it basically a single central defensive midfielder pivot of Casemiro. This now, if you notice, even Leicester City were under Brendan Rodgers tried not to do this. They tried to adapt the system to change it, where we weren't leaving Ndidi as a single pivot and pushing on, because the game's moved on. People attack in a different way. So very simply, he changed it slightly, because after that game, Ten Hag lost his job, and before Amorim was truly brought in, they then went and got in some other players, and they made sure to get in. Van Nistelrooy took charge for the main part. So what did he do? Because the first game in charge was against Leicester City, and they won 5-2 at home. Yes, it was a rotated team, and I think that, so. Again, we rotated some players, but let's look at some of the things he did. Now, let's just look at the goals first. As you can see, what did he do? What's Leicester's weakness? The left-hand side. James Justin was left exposed game after game, let's be honest with you. And he played a full 90 minutes in this because we didn't really have any other options. I believe that Ricardo was injured by this time. But all of their goals came from that left-hand side. Casemiro had a goal, if you remember, from the first half, cuts in from the left, and they targeted this position because they knew, if we look at the average formation, the average system for Leicester City, as we know, James Justin was pushing up super high. So you can see there's a 5 up front. This left all the space in behind here. And from the average player formation we can see here, they decided to attack this left-hand side. Fernandes pushed over. I believe 17 is Garnacho. Again, 2 of them actually got goals, came from that left-hand side. Now, you might think, oh, that's easy. But considering he was an assistant manager, he played it simple. And also, one thing he did, coming back to Casemiro, if you notice, Casemiro's on, I believe, 25? He's 18. What they decided to do, bring Agati into the team and play him as the left-sided, play him alongside him. So even though they seem far apart, that double pivot really helped Casemiro. He isn't the player he used to be. He can't make up the ground as he used to, but simply bringing a player in alongside, playing Fernandes in the 10, playing Garnacho and as part of the team, Marcus Rashford, and a couple of other players that came on as well. If you look at some of the players that came on, he brought on Mazraoui, again, who's been great for Man United. If you watched our video with Flawless, he would have told you about him as well. Diallo, who was kind of extradited from the team. I believe he spent last year out, I think, in Sunderland. So he spent some time on loan. And he made some changes. He brought in Wheatley as well, brought on Hoyland. But the reason why I show you this is there is a nice, again, it's the cup game, and they were ahead. But he started to bring on some youth for this. And they end up winning the game relatively comfortably. Leicester City, it helped because we had no idea what we were doing. But I'd give Ruud van Nistelrooy some credit because, again, he decided to keep it simple. He wasn't going to completely change and embed his style. He looked like there was problems with the team. Let's go back to basics. Let's keep it simple initially. And again, because he knew his reign was coming up and Amram was coming in, he said, well, we'll keep it the same throughout. So we set with a 4-2-3-1. Everybody knew their role, relatively simple, relatively well played. The game against Chelsea played pretty much the same lineup as well, but he brought in the likes of, if I bring this up on screen, he played the 4-2-3-1. But what he did, and I remember them being quite, the way I would use his against Chelsea, we know how good a Chelsea is and how good an Enzo system is. The way that Leicester City set up with this, with you can see the 4-2-3-1. Mazraoui, Martinez was actually a left winger. He moved to centre back. But a lot of these players going forward were the same. Rashford changed out for Xerxes, but the same back three, and he put in Rashford. He bought in as well. So the reason why I'm bringing this in, they kept it simple. They didn't overcomplicate it. They played a 4-2-3-1. So you got your 4 there, your 2, your 8. But it looks like there was bunching up the 3 of them quite together. But in general, this was to neutralise Man United and Chelsea, who have went on a run and have obliterated teams in the past. So Ruud kept it simple. So from this, I don't think this is a bad thing. I want to get into some of the players he would improve. Let me just get onto the formations quickly. So some of the formations that he would end up playing and how that would work. So he plays a 4-2-3-1 for the teams that he knows he won't get the most possession out of. Enzo was we have to have more possession. I understand that to a certain extent. I don't think it would have worked as effectively in the Championship as it would have in the Prem. And also, I think this is how we'd set up. So again, 4-2-3-1. You got Vardy, and some people have said other things. I think this is how we'd set up initially, keeping it simple and making sure we've got a defensive formation. Some things I've heard from the likes of Jared Braithwaite when he was at PSV, that Jared Braithwaite, is becoming a Premier League staple now. But he'd spent a loan on PSV, and he was mentioning how van Nistelrooy was make sure the defense was solid and make sure that everybody knew his role, and his defensively was really, really solid. I think another thing to mention as well with this and the way that the 4-2-3-1 PSV that he played, because again, you've probably watched the coach's voices. If you're not, have a look at that. Great video. But I know a lot of people have covered it, so I don't want to cover it too much. But some main takeaways, obviously, he played in the final third. So he played the he will change to a 3 at the back. He'll play a 4-4-2 in mid defense. He'll bring that up now. And he can play a similar style to Enzo in the midfield, but there's a couple of tweaks with that. So if we're pressing and if we're going to be under the cosh, because normally teams have 2 formations, one in possession, one out of possession. And the simplest one is out of possession, we have a 4-4-2. Do I need to explain this? No. Looking at this, Mavididi, Winks, McAteer. Again, it's a real shame the likes of Ricardo is injured. Fatau was injured. I think would have absolutely thrived under these 2 players would have thrived, and they are players we are really going to miss in this team. But I've put in Winks and Ndidi. I'll explain why my logic is in just a bit. Depending on how fit Winks is ahead of the next game. Akoli, Fass, Justin, Christensen. A couple of people will be telling me, going, why Fass? Surely Fass is not good enough. And I hear that. But who are the options at centre-back? Connor Cody, who I don't think works in a back 2. I think he works the back 3, and same with Vestergaard. And even though Fass hasn't been good enough, I think he's the best chance we've got when you're playing 4 at the back. I believe that's a player that they will look to replace in January or in the future, and keep a Cody and somebody else. But again, we've still got Connor Cody on coming into his last year's contract. Still got an what was it called? Connor Cody, and we've still got Vestergaard there as well. So I can see him defending like this. He's kept it simple. Now, if we want to go and attack games, what does that mean for us? So for the last formation, we play the 5-4-2-3-1 with the 2 attacking eights. Now, a lot of people have mentioned playing Buonanotte and playing El Canus. And this formation, I don't need to explain. And also, obviously, in goal, Hermansen. I think that's obvious. I want to concentrate on this for now. Again, because if we're gonna come up against teams where we're gonna have a bit more possession, we're gonna play Vestergaard in the middle. Now, for this, when we play 3 at the back, I've put Vestergaard in, I've dropped Foss out, I've put a Coley on one side, I've put James Justin on the other. And here's some things that you might be wondering why I've done that. Obviously, a couple of things that to mention, you might be thinking alarm bells are going. Winks obviously playing. If not, I think Skip could be rotation. I think that's fine. Samore is a real. I was thinking, should I drop him? Should I put him in? Could he cover in? Because at the end of the day, if we're playing, if he is Ricardo, then Ricardo's going to come here, do a pivot, and then he'll come out to the right hand side, and everybody will shift over like this. But obviously he's not Ricardo. So I was thinking what Samori could do, what he could do quite well. So I think something that could do, James Justin would hold this position, Samori would come into this, and then Ndidi would drop into the central pivot. I know it's not ideal, but with the players we've got, this is, I think, the best we can do. Now, some of you might be wondering again, why is El Canus not in the team? And why Buonanotte, I think, is a starter. I think we all agree. Vardy is a starter. Mavididi, starter. McAteer, yes, or and I think he would put one player in to develop them, or he may play Jordan Ayew, but substitute him after 60 minutes. Kind of a similar role to what Shinji Okazaki did for us in the year we won the Premier League. Wilfred Ndidi would be another player. Again, there's a couple of players I could play here. El Canus, who I think is potentially more suited and could work, but I think Ndidi for the meantime, keeping it simple, and then taking him off and substituting in this going forward. El Canus. But I think for now, just give him the opportunity of youth and going forward. We'll see what will happen. Now, this you probably know. You've probably seen the formation. You've seen that he can play. Again, he's more versatile. And that's one of the pros that I had with him. He is more versatile than Enzo. Enzo was very stick on the 3-2-4-1. And if we're going to swap players out, they're going to be doing the same thing, just with a bit more effort. That's what I like about it. And also, there's a beauty in simplicity. I think Ruud understands this. When he was trying to change over from Erik ten Hag, he didn't change a lot. Still played 4 at the back, and then he dropped in the player, which I thought was a good move. So there's a couple of players, before I get into the positive and negatives, there's a few players that I really want to see develop, and I want to see how they could thrive. Obviously, you've got your main names of players that really thrived last season. Mavididi, Ricardo, Winks, and a couple of other players that I think people are missing. One, I think, is D. Reed. I think he could get a new lease of life. On that left-hand side, he could then cut in as a left footer, as a right winger. I think could work. He could play as number 10 as well. So if you wanted to play that double pivot, I think D. Reed could go into that. I've been saying this for a while, but I think we haven't seen the best. Some people aren't a fan of him, but I think you can't judge him under Steve Cooper because you saw how good other players in the squad regressed. And you always have to look to other fans. So from Fulham, when they when certain players, when they go, for example, Edouard, a lot of Crystal Palace fans are like, oh, you take him then, okay, which is not a good sign. Jordan Ayew, they're like, we wish him the best, but thank you for your service. We really appreciate all you've done. Can't believe he's leaving. You can understand. The Fulham fans were saying the same thing about D. Reed. Oh, gutted to lose you. I hope you do well in your next club. And I think that speaks volumes. If the fans, for example, when we lost, I'm trying to think of another player as an example, like Damari Gray, for example, when he went over to Leverkusen, we were like, bye, thank you, all the best, but we're not really want you in the squad anymore, as an example. Another player who I really want to see develop, I want to see how he's used, is our goalkeeper, Mads Hermansen. Now, at PSV, Ruud did develop youth. I want to see what he does with him because I don't think we've seen the best out of him. People have saw his shot stopping ability, which I think is, again, correct. But what I would love to see him do more, and let's see if he actually does this, is he going to push him into that back line and work as another pivot alongside Yannick Vestergaard? This could be an option. I want to see how he develops because I don't think we've seen Mads shot stopping, which I've been more than impressed with. But last season, his ability was playing out from the back. If we have the right keeper, I think we're going to see Hermansen really develop. Another one we've mentioned before, El Canus. What role would he play? Because if we've got the box midfield, so having that box midfield of Buonanotte is going to be up there. Where is El Canus? Because for me, he plays somewhere in the middle. If we play a 4-3-3, I can see how he fits in. But in this current system, and he's still young. He's still got time to develop. And he's a fantastic player. Created lots of opportunities. And what was his name? Valdeven? Not Valdeven. Somebody beginning with Veerman. Sorry. At PSV, he really got the most out of. The most like-for-like player is Harry Winks. I think Harry Winks, if he's fit, he's playing. And I think a player like that is vital to the team. I think that we are in a good position, and I really want to see how he would use El Canus for this one. Because El Canus could be a player that could really thrive under a new manager, a young manager that can really give him the time and effort that he needs and deserves. A couple of other players I want to mention. Victor Christensen. Now, we've said he's been through a couple of managers. He didn't want to be here last year. He's not really looked that great this season. James Justin's been hung out to dry, and he's not involved as much in the attack as potentially we would have liked to. So I want to see how he improves. And again, if he's going to want to be here for the longer term, always wants to be set out alone and we bring in another player. I think we've seen enough to know what Fast is about now. Coley will be interesting. And people will naturally talk about, Jamie Vardy. And I think you're right. But one player in particular that I think would be even better than that, Tom Cannon. Developing somebody like Tom Cannon into the team would be great. I still believe that you'd leave him on loan. And this might be a controversial take. I think leave him on loan for the season and keep Edouard for the remainder of the season. If it's not going to be game time here, then don't give it him. Daka, I'll be really interested to see how Daka develops as well. But again, there's some players that I wanted to mention. Buonanotte, we've seen how well he can thrive under a manager that he just has to do individual brilliance. Now, the system will work around him. Can he adjust the system? It will take time. But I still think Buonanotte is shoo-in, just like Jamie Vardy is, just like Harry Winks is for this team at the moment. And he's 19 years old. That's a crazy thing to say. So what are some of the positive and negatives overall? Overall, I'm really happy with the appointment. But youth development, as mentioned before, these tactics are pretty sound and simple. Initially, but he's got multiple formations. Before, Steve Cooper played that one formation, but he was leaving players out to dry, like James Justin, who I think can play in the back three potentially. I think it's a good I think we're following a similar style to what we've got before. We're playing to the strength of the team. I think there is a certain level of trust with a bigger manager and a bigger name expecting something compared to Steve Cooper, who's more like, what do you guys want to do? Which I don't think works, especially coming from a player like Enzo, a management like Enzo. And so the disadvantages, he's still young. He's saying that he's still got 5-8 years experience in the game, but 3 of those were under 21 level at PSV. 1 year in there, he left because he wasn't backed transfer-wise. And bearing in mind, they lost Cody Gakpo, they lost Xavi Simons, I think when he wasn't there. And then they've lost Madueke as well to go into Liverpool and Chelsea, respectively. So he had to deal with that, and I don't think he was backed in the way he should have. I think Leicester City will back him, and I think there'll be a promise of that. Not just a promise, but also the history of it, the reputation of we've always backed the managers. We've backed Steve Cooper, let's be honest. We spent a lot of money, net spend of 70 plus million, which is a lot of money. Michael Golding is another player that I forgot to mention that could improve under, and I really want to see how he develops, especially with the 2 number 8 positions. I think he could be a real talent. He's one of the stars in the Chelsea academy. So the negatives, we've got, again, he's a risk because he's a young manager. The relationship with the players, let's see how that works, because he's not. They'll be expecting Enzo, as we've seen by the signs saying, Enzo, I miss you. The priorities, I think, would be what is his priorities to get around, and also he's got given no time. He's not got a lot of time to come in because we've got games in December, like again, just the winter schedule or the Christmas schedule. If we go back to some of the schedules that we've got at the moment, where has it gone? But we've got lots of games upcoming, and that's not going to end. Also, it's not going to end well. Oh, that's why it's not happened. They've changed around the website, if anybody's wondering. So again, the games are coming thick and fast now. One more game in November, then Tuesday, then Sunday, then Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday. That's going to be a lot of games between now and the end of the year. And at that point, we would have played everybody in the Premier League at least once. So we'll have an idea of what he's trying to build. And towards the end, you've got the likes of Liverpool and who are on fire at the moment, Man United, Man City, who people say, oh, they're stuttering. They'll figure it out. So yeah, there's some of my thoughts. I think it's a great appointment. I know initially I wasn't a fan. After doing some research and watching the coach voice with the description, I think it'll be a great appointment. What do you think? Links in the chat. I won't be able to do a recording for the Brentford game, but I'll give you some thoughts after that game based on what I found. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you all in the next video. So goodbye.